I'm delighted to welcome today the very lovely and delightfully young Amy Corey. Welcome, Amy, to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm young, but I'm old. I threw out my back yesterday. That's how brutal it is for me.
You're a wise head, as we say in England. You're a wise head on young shoulders. You've been through an awful lot in your life, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been an interesting life, but I'm very thankful for it. And obviously, I look back at everything and that I would not be exactly who I am today without it. It's that light from the darkness kind of a thing. I try to see it that way.
Okay, let's start with the end in mind. How old are you now, Amy?
I'm going to be 24 this year.
Okay, I remember being 24. I'm 64 now, so I've got a head start on you. So, 24 years old. What was I doing when I was 24? I was running my first business. That's what I was doing, and on my second husband and my first business. So, yeah,
Wow.
lots happened since. So let's start with your beginning then, Amy, because you were born where?
I was born in Da Nang, Vietnam, and I was adopted to the United States when I was 6 months old. I was actually one of the first of two babies able to be adopted to an American couple from Da Nang. So I was very lucky in that sense. And I grew up in America. I grew up in a tiny town in Oregon. And I lived, Oregon's very nature wildlife. So I grew up that way. People see me as a city girl now, but I had my dirty moments as a child running around barefoot. And yeah. And then I moved to Nashville, Tennessee when I was 18.
So you mentioned adoption. And you were one of two children. Did the other child come with you in the adoption, or did that person go to another family?
No, he went to another family. My parents actually they couldn't have children at the time, so they adopted actually my older sister from China, and then they found me in a book and adopted me as well. So I must have been a really cute baby. That's what I always try to like take it back. But there's definitely a connection. But yeah, I was just a tiny baby. I was very sick too. I was very well taken care of, but obviously very sick in a very small orphanage. So I was very lucky.
What kind of sickness did you suffer with? Was it something to do with the country of your origin, or was it something else?
I had a very bad ear infection, and I mean, I'm very tiny, and you can imagine me as a baby, even tinier. And I was just so young. My birth mom, who I have never met, but I have a lot of information about, was very poor and just kind of gave me to the orphanage. And the orphanage, my parents videotaped everything, so this is how I know, because obviously you don't remember that much at 6 months. But it was a very small orphanage. The orphan ladies were lovely. They actually really wanted to keep me. Um, so it was just a little war between me. But I had an ear infection and I was just dirty and I was just sick. So I was very lucky to be taken back to America for sure. And in the end, I grew up learning that I'm deathly allergic to squid, which is not good when you live in Vietnam.
Ah, right. And it's possible that your birth mother would have eaten squid, and then that's how it comes. Because it's amazing how much we carry from us, that's within the womb. So what our mother eats, drinks, consumes, a toxicity, etc., that comes through into us. And some people never find out what that is. So it's interesting that you found out at an early age that you have this allergy.
Yeah. I'm thankful I did. And I'm thankful at the age I couldn't eat it because my parents would tell me that they were eating it. My adoptive parents were telling me they were eating it on the beach. I was just too young to eat it. So it all worked out.
Right, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Oregon. How old were you when you knew that you were different, shall we say? Because you're a very pretty girl, but you're not what shall we say, Native American looking.
Yeah.
You were clearly from a different culture.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? How did you first realize that you were adopted?
You know, I so I'm an ambassador for Whole Adoption Agency International. And I always talk about this, how I'm very thankful my parents were very educated and they handled it well. They told us as soon as we could start noticing it. They sat us down and they talked to us about it. And then they opened the door to that. And then a few years later, when we kind of had a couple of years to process it, and when we could understand more, they actually came back to us and sat us in the same room and kind of explained more on it. So I was very young. I was probably, they started around 5. And then also my mom actually got pregnant with her own child. So having my older sister being Chinese and me being Vietnamese, an American couple was having a Caucasian baby. So that had to be explained as well. And that kind of pushed us to knowing, you know, we were still a family, but this wasn't going to change anything. And that is the parenting, you know, style tip that I really respect out of them, was how they handled our adoption and how they wanted us to celebrate it. We celebrated Vietnamese Lunar New Year every year. We celebrated Chinese New Year. We had a big, and our adoptive parents actually kept my birth name as my middle name, and then my older sister's name she was giving at the orphanage, her middle name. So they celebrated it, which is not, you know, every case, which I have very much learned through that ambassadorship and working with a lot of adoptees and meeting a lot of adoptees. But for me, I'm very thankful, and I do think that you can choose definitely to see, you know, the life that you have gotten from adoption. It's not necessarily how it started, but you can definitely recognize that, you know, a lot of us are better because we are put up for adoption for the best for us. So yeah, they handled it really well, and I'm very thankful, and I'm very thankful to still be a part of the adoptee community because it means a lot to me.
You mentioned that your adopted mother couldn't have children, and then you just went on to say that she did have a child. So how did that
It's
work out?
it, you know, I don't think anyone knows. I think you know, something maternal in her. She had my youngest sister when she was in her 40s, and it was a shock to us all. But she's a blessing. so it's good. It's good. I don't know how, you know, it was just meant to be. And she is 18 now, so she's back in Oregon with my father still.
So 3 sisters, all from different cultures. It
Yeah,
sounds like
it was a mess.
yeah. It sounds like that's a kind of key for a book or something, or play, or I don't know. Have you thought about
My
anything like that?
You know, I have book projects. I've had TV projects kind of all set out. I live a very non-stop life, and I think a lot of it actually weirdly, you know, goes with my family. My extended family would always tell us that we always needed a camera on us 3 because we were so different. And my mom, we come from a big extended family. My adoptive mom's side of the family is a family of 13 children.
Wow.
So we're a huge family. So there needs to be a camera on all of us. But yeah, you know, you know, projects on going back to Vietnam, finding my birth mom. Books are in the work. It's all very exciting, but it's process.
Have you found your birth mum?
Not physically. You know, it's funny. I was actually about to start the actual TV process right before COVID happened. But I am very thankful to have very, very official documents of her. I have her thumbprint, I have her name. I have, in Vietnam, you have to send out a letter of declaration to the government on donating your child. So I have that original letter, and, you know, I work with Vietnam. I'm an ambassador for a peace organization that is, the president was actually the former ambassador to the EU. So there's a lot of people who have really shown me the culture and helped me and told me how much my mother loves me and will always love me and put me up for adoption, especially when it comes to my birth name. Apparently, in Vietnamese culture, my birth name is Minh Han, which are two separate words. So Min means bright and light, and Han means good moral and good soul. And it apparently in Vietnamese culture is a very rare name to put those two names together, because you have to think when you put those two names together. And my Vietnamese rep here was like, everyone's named after flowers in Vietnam, like my, like, so it's a very rare name, which makes me very confident in, she once set out my destiny before, I even left for America. And I think subconsciously I've always done my career to, make her proud to, when one day I can find her to be like, I didn't waste it. And so thank you. And going back to Vietnam, working with Vietnam has been a huge soul fulfillment in that aspect. So
Cool.
yeah, thank you.
Listeners won't see this, but YouTubers and video audience will see that behind you you've got an array of it looks like electric guitars and all kinds of sound gear. So talk us through how music impacts in your life.
Um, it's cliche to say, but music did really save my life growing up. My adoptive parents mistakenly got me one of those tiny karaoke machines as a child, and they started all of this. And out of fate, our neighbor growing up was a vocal teacher who was taught by a guy named Seth Riggs, who taught Michael Jackson and Stevie Wonder. And I always wanted to take lessons from him. And when I turned 8 years old, 8 or 9, my birthday present was to start lessons with him. And I did that till I was 19. I did a decade of vocal technique. And during that dream, that's when all the mental health stuff was happening. So it was a good balance, and it saved my life in a sense, because I had a dream to live. And when I was 18, 3 months after high school, I moved alone to Nashville and did, the whole Nashville scene, and was very lucky and worked really hard. And I signed with an artist developer named Kent Wells, who is Dolly Parton's producer. And I worked with him in development and PR and all that stuff for the first couple of years. And then I moved on to the public speaking and mental health really specifically, and kind of just have expanded. I'm very thankful to know that my brand is very personality wise, so it can cross over. And I've been very thankful for my music career, and obviously still play a lot of guitar. I'm always singing. And it was out of everything in my career, I just remember first coming here and signing and doing all the songwriter nights. It was just really fun. Like, like I think it has to be fun. You have to be passionate for it in a sense to be able to continue doing it. But I knew I could handle coming in, being confident in myself, but really be opening into listening and learning, knowing that was what I needed to do, and that's what I love to do. And the people I've been able to meet, I got to do a show with Dolly a long time ago, and it's just been a blast, and it got me exactly where I am today. So I'm very thankful for it.
Wonderful. And how
Thank
can
you.
listeners get hold of or listen to your music?
Everything is still on digital platforms, Spotify, YouTube. I actually had a song that was on, was very well publicized with some radio and some bloggers in the UK, actually, on a song called Look at What You Did to Me. So I'm very thankful for that. Everything is still online, and I'm really hoping to release music, sometime in the future for sure, when everything else kind of settles down and my schedule isn't as chaotic.
Okay. Well, I mentioned before we started recording that I'm going to be restarting my radio show, so perhaps I can play some of your music on the show. That would be lovely.
Amazing. I would love that. I would honestly be honored. It means so much. One of my songs, Ghost Tour, which is one of the favorites that I've ever released, started getting some popularity again through some media companies that just happened to pick it up. And it means so much to me knowing that, I'm not currently in music and that my music stories continue to live on. So it honestly means a lot. And I would love that if any feature, it truly just means a lot to me. So thank you.
Most welcome. I used to manage a band some years ago. My last husband is a 6-string fretless bass player, really awesome bass player. So I take my hat off to you with the live music stuff, because not everybody can get up on stage and perform. And I guess that must have stood you in good stead when you started to do public speaking, because of your experience being behind a mic.
It definitely helped. And I think the interesting thing is, anyone who knows me ever since I was a child knew that I had no problem talking. um, but I think it definitely was different. With music, I always felt like I was hogging the mic. I was always telling my story, writing these songs, hoping to relate to the crowd. And with public speaking, it brings a whole type of happiness and fulfillment because I'm actually listening to them. I'm having them talk to me and adapting to what they're saying to where they have the mic as well. And it is so much fun. I before COVID, I was touring middle schools and high schools, and I'm hoping to be able to do that, obviously in the next couple of years when everything kind of slows down. But there's nothing like, I honestly just, I love helping and I love healing. And definitely, in my music career, those nights when you just sing to tables and chairs, it definitely helped the confidence for sure. And I think, for me, it's just if I can just help one person, which is, starting in music was all I was doing, was usually, in those open mics, bars, songwriter stuff, you're usually singing to one person and it's super awkward. But it made me be able to handle, the bigger crowds and knowing that I'm directly talking to each one of these, and it is us. It's not just about me, and it's so much fun. It truly, there's nothing like being in a crowd, just trying to help people and heal people and show people that I truly understand, what they're going through. So.
What's your message when you speak to students? You mentioned going into schools and talking. So what's your message? What's your story there?
A lot of it's all based around my mental health story. I have kind of gained recognition as the one who understands the misunderstood. Because as a child in high school, I was actually the one who was very good at ditching those public speaking events. And I would tell them that, it's honest, I didn't like going, but it wasn't because I didn't like going. It's because going to them, I felt even more misunderstood. I was going through self-harm and eating disorders and depression, and what they were saying, get over it in 24 hours. If you don't get over it, you're going to die, yada, yada. It obviously, when you're told something, you usually do the opposite. And so me going to these schools, I would tell them my story. I would tell them, how hard it was. And I would, show them instead of telling them that getting better is your time. It's your journey. I can't tell you what to do because you're obviously, one, not going to listen. And two, I personally know it's going to make things worse. Let me show you that it is possible to overcome, especially, what I was able to overcome. It's possible to overcome anything. And not only overcome it, but create something really beautiful and really light from it. Hence, kind of my entire career, it's a kind of bit unintentional that, it happened the way it did, and it is what it is now. But to show that you can honestly do whatever you want, and you are not your mental health trauma. You're not your mental health past. I mean, if you look at me and the stereotype of mental health, someone with mental health, it's not what it is. So that's kind of my biggest message, and turning that darkness into light and negativity into positivity. And it was so much fun because I got to include music as well. I sang, you know, a song at the beginning, at the end, and I did a live question and answer, which my management always got nervous about because they know how honest I am, and it's like on the spot. But yeah, you know, I just related. I had, you know, I took a lot of time. I took about a year writing my script out, which obviously you had to send to a lot of the schools when you were booking. And so it was just fun. And, you know, I am still in that age where they, you know, can see that, you know, I'm not far from where they are with the high schoolers and everything, is they can do really anything. And I really kind of push that it's not about talent. It's not about, you know, how good you are at something. It's how much work you put into it and how much passion and drive and your mindset in it. So I do it, and that's why I love doing these podcasts and to get that message across, you know, while I'm not touring. So thank you for that, for your platform.
Most welcome. Maybe there's a collaboration we can do, because I have a special software platform that's been developed. It's unique for me, and it revolves around personality profiling. And I've specialised in the DISC model of behavioural profiling for well, about 25 years now. And my platform I offer free of charge to those who support students.
Wow.
And more like the charities than the schools themselves, although because there's so much red tape with schools these days, particularly in the UK. So I'm not envisaging schools per se, but I support some charities and trusts who work with schools to help students to understand their behavioural characteristics, so they can then work with those rather than trying to fit into a world that doesn't suit them, which is what happened to me as well. I was, like you said earlier on, if somebody tells you to do something, you do the opposite. And certain personality styles are prone to do that. If you understand that about your profile, and you can work within your behavioural strengths and work with those strengths rather than working against them, then, you know, we'll all end up happily ever after. So my aim is to help students while they're teenagers to understand who they are, so they can become grounded and not go through the traumas that are inevitably out there. But if they do go through traumas, they know how to better handle and manage themselves. So maybe there's a collaboration there. Who knows? We'll talk outside of this.
I would love that. And that's amazing. I think honestly, it's like you said, it's understanding it, being, you know, educated about, to be able to adapt, you know, to the situation. And I think there's nothing wrong with being different, kind of, you know, having these things, because like you said, it's workable. You can still do exactly what you want to do. You're just aware of everything. So I love that. I really do. And I would love to collaborate anyway. We'll talk.
Yeah, we'll talk. Yeah. And you were saying earlier on about the passion as well, the passion and positivity. That is so important. It doesn't matter who you are, how old you are. If you're not passionate about what you're doing, it's going to be a chore. So many people go through their whole life and they're not happy in the work that they're doing. So Monday morning, 9 o'clock Monday morning apparently is one of the busiest times for having heart attacks, because people get themselves in a state of anxiety. They don't want to go to work, and then, you know, inevitably their health suffers, and that goes on throughout their whole life. But if you're passionate about what you do, it's not work, is it? I'd say that I've never done a day's work in my life, because I've always been passionate and happy with what I'm doing. And if I get dissatisfied, I'll do something else, you know. But not everybody is blessed enough to, as much as I am, to be able to modify. So yes, modifying is a key, absolutely, but not everybody can modify as much as clearly you and I can do. But again, if you understand how far you can push those boundaries without causing mental health issues, again, that's something that's going to help with grounding and confidence, self-esteem, and all that kind of thing.
For sure, for sure. I totally agree. And I mean, it is, I feel very lucky to do, you know, your passion. And, you know, I've had a lot of high business friends, you know, tell me that honestly, money is a byproduct of hard work done well. Never do anything for the money, because obviously it's never going to get, and there's just something dirty about it. And in my life, it's always been, you know, if I do, you know, something for money, it always, you know, is a present thing. It never actually helps out in the future. And I think, I did, when I moved to Nashville, I worked a day job, was not passionate about it at all, but the goal was to, obviously be able to public speak or do whatever I was doing at the time in the future. And I would always say, you have to do everything you don't want to do to be able to do the thing you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's an interesting twist. Like you said, it's all about the mindset. It's all about, how you choose for sure to look at it. And I always saw, no matter what I don't want to do, what I do want to do, the passion is still there because it's, what I'm leading up towards.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's an interesting.
So Amy, you had a charmed upbringing, really, by the sounds of things, in comparison to a lot of young people. And then now you seem grounded, and you've got these wonderful kind of balance life that you have. But things didn't go quite right in the middle, because you mentioned eating disorders, depression, etc. So what kind of happened in the middle that made you go down that particular path?
It was an interesting, I look back at it a lot now, and obviously after, years of therapy, you truly are able to understand it. I was very thankful with the way I was brought up, in a sense. My parents treated us like adults. That was one of the main things, is, we were treated as an adult, and we had to live a very adult life at very young. When I was 8 or 9, when I started singing lessons, I said, that's when the dreams started, but it's also when the nightmares started. And my parents were getting a divorce. I was getting bullied in school. And then my mom also got diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And so it was a very chaotic reality that just kind of switched. And that, my glass was just pouring out, in a sense of a 9-year-old with so many responsibilities, just pouring out. And I think the bullying is what kind of dropped the rock. Just feeling not safe at school, not safe at home, and being so young, like I couldn't go anywhere. And so that kind of dug me into the darkness, in a sense. And the bullying kind of pushed to, attempted suicide. And when that didn't work out, that's when the self-harm and the eating disorder and the depression started. And that lasted about a couple of years in a depressive mode. And then when I got out of middle school into high school, I was feeling a lot better. My mom was still suffering from cancer, and, everything wasn't great, but I wasn't necessarily depressed, but I was addicted. The self-harm, the eating disorder became, my coping habit and my mechanism, because of the ongoing recurrence of it. So any emotion was just that. And it was just, chaotic. There wasn't just a ton of good that I could see or chose to see at the time. And so I just kept repeating those problems. And it wasn't until actually I was about 14 when I actually went cold turkey on everything. And this is a really big year for me, because when I was suffering from my problems, it took about 7 years to get better, which is why I truly understand anyone is on their own time. It took 7 years, but this is actually the year where I can say I've been in recovery and maintaining my recovery more years than I was suffering, because it's actually my 8th year maintaining my recovery. So it's a big year. I'm like planning a lot of things with mental health and everything in celebration of that. But it was a very, there wasn't anything wrong on the surface. I try to look at it like, I was very lucky to be able to go to school, do my vocal lessons, did vocal lessons twice a week. But, under the surface, there was a lot of, problems and depression and unresolved, unhealed trauma. And it in the end, though, toughened me up, obviously, for the music industry, because when I went cold turkey at 14, I was tested because 6 months later is when my mom passed away. And it was, oh, I'm so sorry. No, no, no. I got my dates. I was 16. I was 16 when I went cold turkey, because I was 17 when she passed away. Sorry, my mind, age is just a number to me. In all honesty, I just think of it. But yeah, so when I was 16, I went cold turkey because we found out that she had a certain amount. She decided to stop treatment, and I kind of, sucked it up and was, I want her last months to be this with me, but also, I want, I see my future, and none of this belongs in it to be able to do what I want to do. And so, after trials and, going cold turkey and relapsing and all of that kind of stuff, I finally was able to keep together. And then when my mom passed away, it was that kind of final test. So then 17 to 18 was, my first year of recovery. And I had a lot of pressure and I had a lot of, eyes on me, obviously. And that really toughened me up. It really, made me do really well under pressure and know that I could really handle anything else that came. Knowing what happened in the past had, you know, that head on my shoulders that just needed to grow. I needed to experience life more to continue growing. But I had a ground, I had a line that I knew I couldn't go below. And that set me really high in my mentality to know that I was coming into Nashville, one, as the only Asian country singer, and just with the brutality of the music industry, with image and sharks, what we call them, and just everything. It really kind of set me up. So I look back on how awful everything was, but I try to see the results than to dwell in actually how bad it was.
So how were your sisters affected with all of this? Because they must have been seeing you go through this difficult time. Your mum was really poorly. How was your dad managing? How were your sisters managing? How were you functioning as a family?
We were very all independent. We were very all dealing with our own things, and we dealt with them on our own. That was the one of the things that kind of, like I said, toughened all of us up. Obviously, my older sister, my younger sister never went through what I was going through. My older sister is 2 years older than me. So she was, in college when it happened, and my younger sister was so young. She didn't really understand a lot that was going on. And my father, like I said, always kind of treated us like adults, so we were kind of on our own in that sense. And my mom and I were really close. We were very close. And when she passed away, though, I always, it's what makes me say that you can always choose to find some light in it. And when she passed away, I kind of lost a parent, but I actually, regained the family dynamic. We very much started to build back our family dynamic, knowing how fast life can go and how fast things can change. And we really started working as a family on a relationship. And we were able to build it back to a sense where, everyone is friends, everyone is, able to communicate and be there for each other as much as I can. And I obviously am very separate from the family because I'm so busy. I sacrifice a lot of my family time for my career, which is something, I hope to give back when everything is said and done. But I'm very close to my younger sister. I try to be there as much as I can for her. And obviously there's a lot of history within our family. So we obviously always have that. And we have it, like I said, a huge extended family too. So we're balancing everyone else. My cousin just told us she's having twins. So everything is growing in a sense. But we all, like I said, share that. We all handled it. In all honesty, I think my youngest sister handled it the best. She's very grounded. She's very, we always saw her as very innocent, but she's very strong. She accepts everything as it is. And it's honestly, to me, amazing to see, even knowing what I've been through, knowing that she's been through similar things when it came to my mom. Just it's an interesting, the Corey family is very interesting.
So where do you see yourself, Amy, say in 5 years? Fast forward 5 years, where do you see, what's the picture of Amy Corey in 5 years?
you know I don't I really hope to be, it's an interesting thing because I really hope to be stable in a sense. I move around a lot. Obviously, I was in London for 6 months last year, as well as Nashville. Before COVID, I lived in Nashville, but I was traveling every 2 weeks, every 2 to 3 weeks, touring, business trips. 5 years, I hope to be, able to be settled in like a house and have a base again, which means whatever success comes from that, but just something to happen to be able to be settled. But my life changes very fast every day, which is why I have a lot of people wanting to do reality TV. They see how quickly my life can change, and how, all of a sudden everything is. So I could get a phone call tomorrow and say that I can come back to Vietnam. It's that random. So weirdly, where I want to be in 5 years is to be more stable, maybe be ready for a relationship and kind of more of a family life vibe. And I think whatever success comes from that will come from that. But I do hope to be back in schools, public speaking. I think that's one of the biggest things I'm wanting to do.
Brilliant. And as you say, you're young enough to associate, for the kids in the school to associate with you. And I think that's important, because if I was going into schools, which I used to do years ago, and talk to students, I'm not going to have as much credibility because I'm an old woman now in comparison, whereas you've still got the youth on your side. And it's about being credible, isn't it? And the fact that you have been through all this stuff, and you know that it's possible to come out the other side. And it takes time as well, as you mentioned. A lady I interviewed recently is also adopted, and she is setting up an organisation for adoptees, because she was saying there's an awful lot of information out there for the parents who adopt, but there's not very much about the adoptees. What's your experience in that area?
I agree. I think, it's very, it's one of the more trickier topics that I definitely have had to do a lot of research on. I'm very much one who doesn't get into a fight unless I know everything I'm fighting for. But I signed to Holt International Adoption Agency as an ambassador, back in 2017, actually. And I agree. There I think knowing that every adoption story is different, and understanding and empathizing that not everyone has the same viewpoint, because not everyone experienced what someone has experienced. My older sister and I, for example, have very different adoption stories. I was given to the orphanage by my mom, out of love, out of care. And my sister, my older sister from China, she was left on the streets, and then someone brought her to an orphanage. So she has had no interest in finding her birth mom. My adoptive parents have always been the parents, to where I still very much have that love, have that desire to find them. And I think that really put me in understanding on, how different everyone is. And I think that's the hardest thing when it comes to kind of putting it out there, is knowing that there is really, really deep wounds and trauma to be able to just say one thing for all adoptees. But obviously for the parents, all the parents are going through the same thing on raising an adoptee, and the adoptees are kind of in their own section. And I think it's just the best thing is to try to share as many stories as you can, because you know someone is going to relate. Might not be everyone, but at least someone will. And that is the one thing we all do have in common is we were all adopted. And I do try to see, knowing that with my ambassadorship, how I do a child sponsorship program too that I promote. And the biggest thing is, obviously you want to keep every child with their original family. That everyone should stay with their family in a sense, but there are situations where you just can't. But I think sharing the stories and being there for each other. I went to an adoptee camp as a child with Holt, which is how I got to do this ambassadorship. Is I went to an adoptee camp where it was a camp. The counselors were adoptees, the staff were adoptees, and we got to all come together and talk and communicate for a week. And then as a camper, you always want to be a counselor. But when I was the age of a counselor, I was doing my career in Nashville. So I actually reached back out to them and was like, how can I help? How can I be a part of something that is truly very important to me? And I signed this ambassadorship, and COVID has definitely affected that because I was supposed to do an orphanage tour with them around the world, and obviously can't really do that at the moment. But I think it is sharing story, and that's why I'm very passionate about, when the time is right to do my adoption story and to film it and to really show that there's a lot of good and a lot of bad and a lot of hurt and love when it comes to it. But being open about it and being honest about it is what's going to truly heal, because a lot of adoptees will feel understood.
The effect of the wider family as well must be taken into consideration, I feel, because your younger sister, how I wonder how she feels. Perhaps she's expressed it to you. How do you feel? She's kind of the true blood of your parents, and then she's seen your experience, and maybe she has views on the way you've all been brought up differently because of your experiences. And it's just reminded me, actually, I actually had 6 adopted cousins. My mother had 2 brothers, and I know one of them has passed now, but I think the other one may have passed. He was getting very old, and he wasn't very well. But my family never kept in contact. Very, very strange family I come from. But anyway, it's another story. But her 2 brothers, their wives couldn't have children, and they both adopted 3 children each. And
wow.
There were lots of difficulties, and because this was all happened when I was younger, and in those days nobody really spoke about anything like that. It was most unusual to adopt, and so I never really knew anything about them. I've got 1 remaining cousin out of the 6 that I'm in contact with, and she has always been really, really so grateful for being adopted. I'll tell a lie, two sisters, and they've got different stories as well. So it is, as you say, it's very individual, isn't it? Very individual. And I take my hat off to you for what you're doing. Speaking out and helping. And I think an ambassadorship with a tour with music. I mean, what better combination is that? Fabulous.
Thank you. It like I'm very lucky to be able to do so many things that I am truly passionate about. It's really, I feel very honorable, and I take everything very, very seriously, especially when it comes to my age with all of these responsibilities. So I really appreciate it. And I always just do it to help and to heal and to just be that light, to be able to shine and within their own light. And adoption is one that is one of the more trickier ones I've been able to be a part of, but it makes me very passionate, and hopefully really kind of push within the next couple of years. And it's very, the adoptee community is very, very supportive of each other, because it's that automatic relation. You relate, and you
Aren't you?
become your own family.
Yeah, you're in a special club, aren't you?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
are. Yeah.
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 It's like with me, with my cancer stories, I was given a year to live 5 years ago with stage 4 cancer. So that's how I'm able to help people. And I've had 4 different versions of cancer, including skin cancer, several episodes on my face. And when people see me, they can't believe it because I don't have any scarring. You know, I've dealt with it all myself. But I've not done anything conventional. I've made my own version up of how I've healed myself. So when there's a few of us who are in the kind of stage 4 cancer recovery world, and we all keep in touch, and most of us haven't met. Some of us have met, but most of us haven't met, but we have this affinity. So like with you, with the adoptee side of things, it's a kind of an unwritten, it's a bond, isn't it, that you kind of instantly have with these people.
I love that. I love
So
that.
much for your time, and
Thank you.
I really take my hat off to what you're doing. So how can people get hold of you and maybe book you for a school tour or a music tour or an adoptee talk, or whatever?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a blast, honestly, and I'm very thankful for your platform. I was very lucky. One of the luckiest things I ever got to do in my career is I got the domain Amy Corey. So my website is just amycorey.com, and then it's the same for all my social media. And I'm accepting bookings. It's going to be a really good year, and continuing forward. For everyone, I hope for everyone. And I'm always open for bookings, always open for podcasts. And, I appreciate you being a part of it for sure.
Fabulous. And can you spell your website, Amy, for the listeners, because they'll be able to see the screen?
Yeah, Amy, AMY, Corey, COREY.com. Super easy.
Fabulous. Okay, well, thank you so much, and I'm sure we will be hearing more from the delightful Amy Corey. Thank you.
Thank you so much.